Well, hey guys, welcome to today's video. It is early fall now. It's about October the 10th as I'm making this video, and we got hydrangeas everywhere. And I want to kind of show you today, this time of year, we've had a very late summer, not very much cool weather at all up to this point, and that's why our hydrangeas still look like this. We've had no hint of frost yet, which we normally wouldn't have by this point anyway, but very few cool nights. So we're still really bloomed out in our hydrangeas. So I want to see what we're actually doing with these this time of year that will help us to be ready to sell them, grow them out and sell them for next year. So let's jump in here and let's have a look. Now this is out in our grow out area where we grow so many of our plants out, but this is a row of hydrangeas here all the way down that way. There's some more right over there. There's another group right there, and then there's some more right there, and even more, the ones that are green right there. So we got hydrangeas out here everywhere. There is somewhere in the 800 to 1,000 hydrangeas just right here, and it's time of year where it's time to do something with them. So let's grab a couple and take them over to the potting table. Now these particular hydrangeas that I brought in here are silver dollar hydrangeas, and you know, you can see they're paniculata hydrangeas, which means they're sun-loving hydrangeas. But more than that, what we need to understand about the paniculatas, this is a hydrangea that you need to prune in fall, or you can even prune it in the middle of the winter, anytime before it starts to flush out in the spring, because these are going to bloom on next year's growth. Remember, it's fall now. These are not going to grow anymore this year. So we're going to prune these, and I'm going to just come in here and take a closer look. I'll show you how I'm going to prune these, just to kind of show you how I do this. And, you know, you want to prune them back hard. Prune them back more than you think you should. You think, you know, that looks like murder when you do that. But, look, I'm just going to cut this thing back to some sticks, and there's not going to be much left of this. So, when I prune these, I just come in here, and you can cut it back even harder than that. I just like to leave a leaf here or there, but you don't even have to do that. But out of all of that, that is all I have left. So these are going to branch from this point next spring when they flush out and make a beautiful plant. And let me show you kind of my strategy behind my potting here, because I don't want to say it's some kind of secret, because there's no secret at all. It's just what I do, but it saves money on dirt and on our pots. So let's check this out. So I just take these. This is basically it's a half-gallon pot. It's about 2 quarts. It's a small pot. It's smaller than a trade gallon. And this is a full 1-gallon pot, also not a trade gallon. So this is a really good dirt saver, because these are typically going to be potted in a 1.5 or 2-gallon pot. But what I like to do is grow these out in these smaller pots. You know, when you pot up, you need to go basically at least double your pot size. So I'm just going to stick that in there. There's not a ton of space in there around the sides, but just stick it in there and shake that loose potting mix down. And these will flush out next spring, and by May, these will really, really branch out really nice. And for this pot, even though it's only a 1-gallon pot, we sell these for $10.97 each, $11 each. And this pot obviously is cheaper than a trade gallon pot because it's smaller, and the amount of potting soil that you use is less than you would use in a trade gallon pot because of the smaller pot. So what we would normally sell these for in a trade 2, I've gotten to where I just do them in a size 1 and make a little bit more margin off of it that way, because you have a smaller pot with less dirt but the same size plant. And when we sell this next spring, it'll be this tall and have 5 blooms on it, and it'll be spectacular. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a really good way to do this. And this time of year, when we're doing these hydrangeas, our barrels that we keep our clippings in when we're doing the prunings, they get real colorful with real big hydrangea flowers in them. And, you know, it almost feels weird to throw all this in the compost pile. But this time of year, growing these how we grow them, that's just what you do. And that's just part of it. Now, again, this time of year, when we take these and pot them, I'm going to fertilize this. Now, we haven't had frost yet, and I would expect to have frost anytime between the next 2 weeks to the next 4 to 6 weeks. You really don't know, and there's no way to know. We're not going to get any significant growth on this, but I'm going to just get a pinch of fertilizer and put on that. Now, if it were spring, I would put 4 times that much in there, but that's maybe half of a teaspoon or something like that. It's not a lot of fertilizer, but I'm going to sit this out on my grow out area. The sun's going to still shine on this each day. We're, you know, kind of in the 70s, maybe 80, 85 degrees still during the days. Our summer just keeps on going. So I'm going to give these every opportunity that they can to start putting on new buds and to start breaking out their leaves on their new nodes for next year. And what that will do is it'll give you a head start next spring, and these will flush out a little bit quicker than if you just pot them all during the winter. So that's the reason that I do it this way, and we've got hundreds of these to do. We won't get them done all this fall, but we'll get a good jump on them this fall, and we'll work on potting these all winter and have them all done way before spring next year. But even while the weather is still at least kind of warm, I mean, we're about 50, 55 degrees at night, 75, 85 during the day, this is the way that I'm going to do it. I'm going to get every bit of growth out of these that I can between now and the time that we have a freeze. So from a distance, all of this looks a whole lot nicer than it really is. I mean, people have stopped by several times during our mom sales, and a couple of times when we're just closed, and came in and said, hey, I would really like some of those hydrangeas. And, you know, it feels weird, you know, as a nursery owner to say, I'm sorry, I don't have any hydrangeas when people are looking at this. But let me just give you an example of what these hydrangeas actually are that we're looking at here. So these are just piled in here. All these are just kind of crushed in here. And here's what happens to them when you grow them that way. Now, from a distance, with a bunch of these kind of crushed together, they look great. And they almost look like a solid hedge. But what you're really looking at is several hundred of these all crushed together. Now, that's a healthy plant, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that plant as far as that goes. But there's no way that you could legitimately sell that to anybody. I mean, this thing's got to be pruned way down here, and it's got to be repotted into a bigger pot so that next spring, as I mentioned in there at the potting table, these things will flush out. And sometimes if you don't really have an understanding of that, I mean, that looks absolutely awful as far, I mean, you'd never set that out for sale, something that looks like that. So I'm showing you that just to say that when you grow hydrangeas, especially paniculatas, and I mean, I'm trying some other varieties this year as well, but when you're growing hydrangeas, you have to stay on the pruning so that they look perfect when it's time to sell them. And if you've got your plants looking right when it's time to sell them, you'll sell more of these than you ever thought was possible. Some of the varieties that are really easy to do the paniculata varieties, these are pink diamonds here. These are actually in 3 gallons. They're bigger and they're going to flush out a lot bigger than the ones I just showed you before, or showed you just a minute ago. But pink diamond is one that works really well. These are some limelights here. We got hundreds and hundreds more of them to do. I've started on a few of the silver dollars over here. There are other varieties you can do this with, like Tardiva. There's one called Chantilly Lace. There's one called Phantom. Just a number of paniculata varieties that work and respond to pruning exactly like I'm showing you. Prune them in the fall, repot them in the fall. Again, you can do it in the winter if you need to. It's just going to speed up your time frame a little bit, but there's a lot of varieties of these panicle hydrangeas that respond well to this, and these are just some of the ones that I use. So guys, just wanted to show y'all one of the things we're doing out here this week. One of the things we're working on, it's like 'tis the season for pruning and getting your woody shrubs potted up. So one of the things we're working on this week, and that we'll be working on all month into next month. So guys, thank y'all for watching today. I love y'all, and I'll see you on the next one.